Don't forget to like, subscribe and share the videos.
The next topic for the day is surge in methane levels. Okay, so when there is surge in methane levels, what will be its consequences that we have to see. So the consequence that they are discussing here is climate change. Okay, so surge in methane levels is going to aggravate climate change. Okay, it is going to hasten climate change. So that we need to know. Let us get into the details. The surge in methane levels in Earth's atmosphere has raised concerns about planet's ongoing climate transition. There is climate transition, and this methane level increase is going to affect it. How is it going to affect? Let us understand. We all know that methane is a potent greenhouse gas. Yes, it is a greenhouse gas which is increasing in its amount, which means it is growing. And it raises questions about whether Earth is undergoing termination level transition. What is termination level transition? This can be a potential question either in your mains or even in your prelims. Okay, termination level transition. We already know transition means change. Climate change is going to happen. But how termination level transition is going to happen, and what is the characteristics of termination level transition, that we need to know. Okay, such termination level transitions have occurred in the past also. So there has been climatic shifts that has taken place. Next is the concept of termination level transition refers to significant abrupt shift in Earth's climate from one state to another. So there will be significant and abrupt shift. Okay, so the best example for this is termination of ice age. That is the best example that we are going to discuss. So these transitions are marked by rapid and substantial change in various climatic factors. So it will have consequences on planet's ecosystem. Weather patterns will be hugely affected, and then there will be disturbance in overall environmental stability. All these consequences are there when there is rapid and substantial change in climatic factors. Next, Earth's climate has undergone termination level transition throughout history. So in the past there has been many termination level transitions have taken place in the past. Okay, so these transitions are often associated with end of ice age. This is the best example that we are seeing here. What is ice age? Ice age was in the Pleistocene epoch. Okay, so what is the period of Pleistocene epoch? It is spanning from approximately 2.6 million years ago to 11,700 years ago. That period is ice age. Okay, so 11,700 years ago we experienced termination of ice age. So after termination of ice age, there was subsequent shift to warmer glacial periods. This we experienced. Okay, so there was warmer phase. From ice age to warmer phase, there was a sudden and abrupt change, and this has caused many changes in our climate. Okay, so there are various factors like change in ocean currents and atmospheric composition which will trigger termination level transition. So methane level rise will directly affect atmospheric composition. How is it going to be affecting it? That we'll see. Next, before getting into further more details, let us understand what is methane. Okay, the basics of methane. Methane is the simplest hydrocarbon. What is methane? CH4, right? So its structure is like this, CH4. One carbon atom and then 4 hydrogen atoms. This is methane. Okay, and it is a flammable compound, and it is used as a fuel worldwide, and then it is a powerful greenhouse gas like we discussed earlier. And see this, it has more than 80 times the warming potential or power of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is also a potential greenhouse gas, but this methane has 80 times the warming potential of carbon dioxide, okay, over the past 20 years of its lifetime in atmosphere. Next, roughly 3/5 of methane emission comes from fossil fuel burning, and farming and landfills and waste. So these are the reasons for methane emission in environment, and the remainder is from natural sources like vegetation rotting in tropical and northern wetlands. So vegetation rotting is also one of the reason for methane emission, and other reasons are fossil fuel burning, farming, landfills and waste. Okay. Next, methane threats warming limits, threatens warming limits. How is methane surge is going to threaten warming limits? First thing is, it is a potential greenhouse gas. Okay, so it is much more effective in trapping heat than carbon dioxide. This we saw earlier, and then it has a shorter atmospheric lifespan when compared to carbon dioxide. So its lifespan is just a decade. Okay, 10 years. But then carbon dioxide's lifespan is century. Okay, number of centuries. Next, while this methane is present in smaller quantities, though it is present in smaller quantities, its heat trapping capacity is approximately 28 to 36 times than that of carbon dioxide. Okay, so they are comparing methane and carbon dioxide here, and then methane was 0.7 ppm in the air before humans started using fossil fuels. Okay, before humans started burning fossil fuels, the composition of methane in the air was just 0.7 parts per million, but now at present it has been increased to over 1.9 ppm and it is still rising. Okay, so this is a major environmental concern. Next, what are all the challenges in limiting this warming? Okay, already warming is happening, but we need to limit it. But there are challenges associated to it. What are they? So, when there is methane level rise, it will complicate the efforts to limit global warming to safe levels. Yes, that is there. And when there is increase in methane level, it will contribute to overall greenhouse gas effect, and it will also aggravate temperature rise, and it will push the planet closer to dangerous temperature thresholds, obviously, and then it will also lead to further increase or release in methane. How this point is important: when there is methane increase, when there is increase in methane and when there is warming because of methane, then it will further increase the levels of methane. How is this going to happen? Because of thawing. What is thawing? Thawing means melting. Okay, so thawing of permafrost and melting of Arctic ice. So okay, so these permafrost and Arctic ice are reserves of methane. Okay, methane is there underneath. When there is melting of these water bodies, the ice, there will be release of methane further, and it will amplify the warming effects in our atmosphere. Okay, so this is how it is linked. Such points are important from your exam point of view. Next, what are all the effects of increase in methane level on ecosystem? First thing is, it will affect the natural processes and the biodiversity will also be affected, and particularly there are certain vulnerable ecosystems like wetlands which are sensitive to methane related changes. So such ecosystems will be directly affected. Next is, there are implications for sea level rise. Because it has warming potential, there will be melting of ice and glacier. Like we saw in the previous slide, there will be melting of ice and glacier, which will again lead to release of furthermore methane, which again has higher warming potential. So it will contribute to sea level rise. So when there is sea level rise, obviously it will threaten coastal communities and it will aggravate the impacts of climate change. Okay, so coastal communities will be affected by this sea level rise. Next is, what are all the efforts taken to control methane? First thing is Haridhara. This is actually an Indian effort, Indian initiative. So which is the organization or the research center which has created this? It is Indian Council of Agriculture Research. They have developed this Haridhara. What is this Haridhara? It is actually a food supplement. Food supplement to whom? to the cattles. Okay, so it is anti-methanogenic, which means it will reduce methane generation or methane emission. So reduction in methane generation or methane production is called as anti-methanogenic. So anti-methanogenic food supplement, it is called as Haridhara. Okay, so what is its aim? Its aim is to cut down the cattle methane emission by 17 to 20%, and it can also result in higher milk production. How is it going to cut down the methane emission, and how is it going to improve milk production? That we need to understand. Before that, methane production in cattle. How is methane production happening in cattle? Okay, in cattle there is a particular part in its stomach called as rumen. Okay, so rumen is the first part of the 4 stomachs that the cattle has. So if you see the picture, you will understand it better. See, in this, the entire thing is stomach. This entire thing is stomach, and then comes the intestine part. So within stomach there are 4 different parts in a cattle. First one is rumen, next is reticulum, and then comes omasum, and then comes abomasum. Okay, so these are the 4 parts, and this is the part which we are focusing on, rumen. Okay, so in that rumen only there is creation of methane. How? All the plant material, cellulose, fiber, starch and sugar which is being consumed by the cattle will be fermented and broken down by microorganisms before they get digested and their nutrition is being absorbed. They will be fermented. Where is this fermentation is happening? It will happen in the rumen. Okay, the first part of the stomach. Okay, and this carbohydrate fermentation, all these are carbohydrates, right? Plant material, cellulose, fiber, starch or sugar, they are all carbohydrates. When there is fermentation of carbohydrates, then it will lead to production of carbon dioxide and hydrogen. Okay, so carbohydrates are going to get fermented and they are going to produce carbon dioxide and hydrogen. Okay, and when carbon dioxide and hydrogen is reduced, which means when carbon dioxide is reduced, there will be production of methane, and this is affected by the use of microbes called archaea. It is a type of bacteria, we can say. Okay, so it is present in the rumen to produce methane. Again, it happens in the rumen only. This fermentation happens, and also this conversion of reduction of carbon dioxide into methane also happens in the rumen only. Okay, so this is how there is methane production in cattle. Okay, within the stomach of cattle there will be methane production, and these methane will be released from the cattle. So cattle play a major role in methane production. Next, this Haridhara, we saw, right? Haridhara is the food supplement. So it decreases the population of protozoa microbes in the rumen. Okay, these protozoa microbes are the one which is responsible for the fermentation, the breaking down of the food particles, and it will lead to hydrogen production. Okay, that protozoa microbes will lead to hydrogen production, and this hydrogen is made available to this archaea, which is again present in the rumen for reduction of carbon dioxide to methane, like we saw in the previous slide. Okay, so this Haridhara food supplement is going to impact these microbes. So when these microbes are impacted, then there won't be production of hydrogen. When there is no production of hydrogen, there won't be conversion of carbon dioxide into methane. Okay, so this is how they are going to interfere in that process. Okay, and it has been made from tannin-rich plant-based sources. Okay, so these Haridhara is being made from tannin-rich plant-based sources. And what are these tannins? They are bitter and astringent chemical compounds which are known to suppress and remove protozoan from the rumen. Okay, so these protozoans are suppressed or they are removed from the rumen because of this tannin compounds, which is an essential compound of this Haridhara. Okay, next, fermentation after the HD will be help helpful in production of more propionic acid. So what is the role of propionic acid here? We already saw that this supplement will also lead to higher milk production. So how? Through propionic acid production. This propionic acid will provide more energy for lactose production. What is lactose here? Milk sugar is called as lactose. So there will be more lactose production and there will be weight gain in animals. Okay, so they will be healthy here. So this is how this food supplement is going to help to reduce methane and also to improve milk production. It is actually an initiative of Indian government. Next, there are certain global efforts. First thing is Methane Alert and Response Team. What is this Methane Alert and Response Team called MARS? It will integrate data from a large number of existing and future satellites. There are existing satellites and there will be future satellites, and the data from these satellites will be collected. Why? To send out notifications to relevant stakeholders to act on it. So they will be giving data about the methane production. Okay, where is methane production there? Which area or which region is affected by large methane production? Such details will be given to governments and they will have to take relevant actions against it. Next is Global Methane Pledge. This is a recent thing which happened in 2021. So nearly 100 countries had come together to voluntarily pledge. When was this done? It was done during the Conference of Parties 26th Conference of Party in the year 2021. Conference of Parties of which convention? Of UNFCCC. What is UNFCCC? United Nations Framework Convention of Climate Change. Okay, so United Nations Framework Convention of Climate Change had a Conference of Party, 26th Conference of Party in Glasgow, and in that conference only they have taken this pledge called Global Methane Pledge. So what is the pledge actually? To reduce methane by at least, methane emission by at least 30% by the year 2030. From which levels? 2020 levels. So from 2020 levels, they will be reducing methane emission by at least 30% by the year 2030. Okay, but is India a part of this pledge? No, India is not a part of this pledge. This is also important from exam point of view. And there is also yet another initiative called Global Methane Initiative. What is this Global Methane Initiative? They are going to use methane as a cleaner energy source. Okay, so the conversion process is focused here. So they focuses on reducing barriers to recovery and use of methane as a cleaner energy source, and it is a public-private partnership initiative. Okay, so these are the initiatives to control methane release or methane emission. Okay.